Welcome to the Explainer. So, have you ever wondered if an ancient Greek philosopher and, say, an ancient Indian mystic would actually agree on what makes you, you? Today, we're embarking on a truly global journey to explore one of the most profound mysteries out there, how different civilizations across time defined human nature, our psychology, and our ultimate well-being. Whether you're trying to understand yourself better or you're just fascinated by human history, this is the ultimate road trip through the human mind.
Here's our flight map for today's Explainer. We'll start with the Examine Life, move into Western views on humanity, explore Islamic concepts of man, dive into Indian philosophical traditions, and finally wrap up with the Sajatra person. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Examined Life. The Quest for Meaning and Happiness.
Okay, so before we start hopping across different cultures, we got to establish why we even bother with philosophy in the first place, right? It's not just some dry academic theory. It's deeply tied to our pursuit of perfection, finding those ideal human qualities, and basically just living a meaningful life. So I want to toss this ultimate question right back to you. What does it actually mean to be human? What is human nature? You know, understanding these concepts isn't just about passing a history test. It gives us a real compass for how to live. When we wrap our heads around human nature, we get the tools to actually solve everyday problems and figure out what truly matters to us.
To really ground this, let's look at a foundational anchor for our world tour. Yep, this is Socrates, the legendary ancient Greek philosopher and, well, the ultimate philosophical gadfly of Athens. He was absolutely convinced that if you want to find happiness, you literally cannot separate philosophy from your daily life. For him, wisdom and good judgment, those are the very engines that drive a meaningful existence.
Think this incredibly famous quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Classic, right? But what does that actually mean for us today? Well, it means that if we don't give our lives much thought, if we don't actively try to discover our true meaning, or even question our daily habits, we're totally missing the point. Socrates argued that if a life is devoid of any effort to fix our mistakes, well, true happiness is pretty much impossible.
Now, a really great way to examine our lives today is through what's called the PSI model. To truly grasp human psychological development, we have to look at the whole picture, the whole shebang. PSI stands for physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. And as you'll see on our tour today, different civilizations definitely emphasize different parts of this model. But finding real well-being, that always requires balancing these four critical dimensions of the human experience. Moving on to Section 2, Western Views on Humanity, from the soul to the self.
All right, we're shifting gears into our first major cultural lens. We're going to explore how Western philosophy has historically approached the human mind and society over centuries. Let's quickly trace this evolution. So, back in ancient Greece, it was all about the soul and human flourishing. Fast forward to the 17th century Enlightenment, and the focus shifted completely to cold rationality and individual rights. Then, jump to the 19th century. Boom, Freud introduces this chaotic, unconscious mind. And finally, in the 20th century, existentialism leaves us grappling with radical freedom and this intense modern quest for authenticity. So it's a pretty rapid journey from a grand divine order right down to the complex, somewhat isolated modern self.
Next up, Section 3, Islamic Concepts of Man, the Inward Spiritual Journey.
Now we're crossing over into Islamic civilization, which offers this really fascinating contrast to the Western focus on secular individualism. Over here, the focus shifts heavily toward an inward, mystical journey of the soul toward God, something heavily influenced by traditions like Sufism. A really core concept to grasp here is fitra. Quranic conceptions of human nature emphasize that absolutely every individual is created with this innate, natural disposition. Think of it like humanity's built-in moral compass. It's the very foundation for moral and spiritual development. But here's the key. Humans are also granted free will. We have the ability to choose between right and wrong, and it's on us to cultivate this spiritual potential through conscious effort.
And when this fitra is actually nurtured, it naturally inclines towards tawhid, which is the absolute oneness of God. This is viewed as the ultimate destination, the ultimate realization for a human being who's following their natural spiritual compass under divine guidance.
And all of this, it happens within the qalb. Now, in Islamic psychology, the qalb, or the heart, isn't just a physical organ pumping blood. Far from it. It's recognized as the true seat of intellect, emotion, and spiritual insight. Remember that PESI model we looked at a minute ago? The concept of the qalb perfectly merges those emotional, intellectual, and spiritual dimensions of human consciousness right into one single center.
All right, Section 4, Indian Philosophical Traditions, Cosmic Reality and Moral Action.
In Indian philosophy, the focus broadens out to this vast, cosmic interconnectedness. To set the stage, we first need to understand jiva. Jiva is the localized individual soul. Basically, it's your unique individual experience of existence. But to truly understand human existence in this specific tradition, we can't just stop there. We have to look at how this individual soul relates to the rest of the entire universe.
And that brings us to a really beautiful comparison elucidated in Vedantic texts like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. On one side, you have Atman, which is the self. On the other side, you have Brahman, the ultimate reality of the cosmos. Think of Atman as a single drop of water, and Brahman as the infinite vast ocean. Understanding that the drop is ultimately the exact same stuff as the ocean, well, that is absolutely central to understanding human existence in this tradition.
So how does all this cosmic philosophy play out in everyday life and society? Well, it's largely through the law of karma, which ties absolutely every action to moral responsibility, and the belief in reincarnation, which deeply shapes how individuals understand themselves over vast stretches of time. Our sources also impartially note that these philosophical foundations historically manifested in the development of the caste system in India. These structures of social stratification have historically had major impacts on social identity, mobility, and inequality. It just goes to show how deeply abstract philosophy can literally shape physical societies.
And our final stop, Section 5, the Sejastra person, Achieving Ultimate Harmony.
We're going to bring our world tour to its climax now by synthesizing all these diverse ideas into one holistic ideal. The Sejastra concept is all about being human-centered and finding perfect balance. Achieving Sejastra, it's all about perfect dual harmony. On one side, you've got microcosmic aspects. These focus on the self and the inner self, your spiritual, intellectual, and emotional core. On the flip side, you have macrocosmic aspects, which focus on the external environment and how you relate to and connect with literally all living things around you. You just cannot have true well-being in one without the other.
The source material outlines a very specific worldview to become this Sejastra person. Step 1 is acknowledging a primordial covenant with God. This asserts that human creation was intentional, actually rejecting purely Darwinian theories of chance. Step 2 requires the pursuit of spiritual purification. Because spirituality is viewed as the center of human personality, humans have to take care of their hearts and souls, operating from the fundamental belief that we are not born sinful. And step 3, that's about action. It means avoiding worldly deceptions, fulfilling moral obligations, and operating from a pure, uncorrupted core of spirituality and intellect.
So what's the ultimate goal of the Sejastra person? Simply put, preserving the balance. It's this harmonious way of life supported by conserving the soul, mind, life, wealth, and religion. And it's not just about today either. It's very forward-looking. It calls for us to conserve our soul, mind, and environment so that the younger generation can sustain this equilibrium for decades to come, constantly aspiring to be future community leaders.
Which kind of brings us full circle right back to Socrates. We've seen how the Greeks, the Enlightenment thinkers, Islamic mystics, and Indian philosophers have all tried to define the human experience. We've explored the Sejastra ideal of perfect inner and outer balance. So the question I want to leave you with today is this. Based on all this incredible wisdom from civilizations past and present, are you actively examining your own life? Are you balancing your physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual selves to build a truly harmonious Sejastra future? Take a moment to really think about that and use these cross-cultural tools to find your own meaning. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.